Welcome to the Boxing Gossip channel. Hope everyone's doing well. Let me start by just a bit of a channel update. Been away for a few days with work commitments, etc. Been properly busy, so a little bit behind on the boxing content. No podcast yesterday, but we'll hope to do the podcast next week as per normal. The reason there wasn't a podcast yesterday was because of commitments my end, nothing to do with the guys on the panel. Need to catch up on a little bit of news. Scott Quigg versus Valdez, Linares versus Lomachenko, but then also got to start with the big fight build-ups for Lucas Browne versus Dillian Whyte, and of course Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker. Yeah, lots to squeeze in. We may have to leave some of the catch-ups on Quigg and Linares till next week's podcast, I guess. But yeah, today I've been able to watch The Gloves Are Off. Just before I get into it, we'll discuss The Gloves Are Off briefly. Not going to be the longest video. But before I get into it, give a quick shout-out to my podcast panel, who were all very keen to do the podcast yesterday. So appreciate the continued support from those guys, even though I was unfortunately unable to make it. I'll also give a shout out to the channel sponsor, the Dressers Arms, for their continued sponsorship. Please do click the link in the description box below to check out their website. You can have a look at them, and as I've said before, no more suitable sponsor for the BG channel than a pub, I would say. So there we go. Anyway, let's move on and let's discuss The Gloves Are Off. AJ versus Joseph Parker. Look, both of these guys, I'll be honest and say that neither of these guys are the most instantly engaging personalities. Both of them are kind of quiet guys. Both of them are probably better represented by their two promoters. Obviously, Eddie Hearn as the extremely vocal mouthpiece for Anthony Joshua. David Higgins as the extremely vocal mouthpiece for Joseph Parker. So look, this was a quiet affair. There wasn't any Dillian Whyte style antics. There was no flipping of tables. There was no security needed, etc. And both guys, went about their business respectfully. I'm not a huge one for psychology in boxing. Sometimes people spend weeks and weeks and weeks talking about psychology in the lead up to the fight and how it's gonna, affect one man or the other. Then someone gets punched in the chin and the fight is over. And all of the psychology in the lead up beforehand, may not be overly relevant. I would say there are rare occasions when psychology in the lead up to a fight does make a difference. I'm not sure whether this fight is going to be one of those. But what I will say is I do believe that Joshua is annoyed by Parker and by Parker's antics. I'm not going to say he's rattled. I'm not going to say he's scared. I am going to say he's annoyed. I think Joshua is the type of character who takes himself very, very seriously. I've said this before. I think he's got a very high opinion of himself. I think he takes himself very, very seriously. There's nothing wrong with that. But I don't think he liked that video and that press conference where Joseph Parker and his team got people all over the world talking about how bad Joshua's chin is. I just don't think Joshua likes that. He doesn't like being questioned in that way. There's been other comments in the lead up to this fight, particularly comments made by Joseph Parker. I think Joshua is just rubbed up the wrong way by Joseph Parker. And you could kind of see that. He didn't like that video. And I felt he was a bit annoyed. Later in The Gloves Are Off, Johnny Nelson talked about Tyson Fury walking Joseph Parker to the ring. We'll see if that happens. That would certainly be entertaining if it does. And instantly Joshua says something like, I'll knock him out of the ring as well. It's funny, it's humorous at that stage. But I just feel that Joshua is being rubbed up the wrong way here. Whether that is of any relevance or not, I suspect not, but you never know. Let's have a talk about what a few things the guys said in the lead up to the fight. Joseph Parker at one point said he doesn't think that AJ will be able to hit on me. He doesn't think AJ will be able to land on me. Now, obviously, for something like this, The Gloves Are Off. The guys are going to be selling the fight. They're going to be trying to, make their opponent question themselves, etc. So I'm not for 1 second suggesting that either fighter will be going into this fight with a genuine game plan that they express on the gloves are off. You know, that would be naive to believe that. But what I will say is, if Joseph Parker genuinely believes that Anthony Joshua is not going to be able to hit him, I think he's in for a bit of a shock, because Parker is faster than Joshua. Parker is potentially a better mover than Joshua. But if you look at Joseph Parker's career to date, there are very few fights Parker has been in where he hasn't been hit. In all of Parker's fights of any noteworthy level, he's been hit. I'm not saying Parker can't win this fight, but there is going to be a time in this fight where he does get caught by Joshua, where he's going to feel the weight of Joshua's punches, and when he will have to answer the question as to whether or not he can take that power. Joseph Parker has given us reason to believe he has a solid chin. But that's going to be tested by Anthony Joshua, a guy with a 100% KO ratio. And whilst Parker does need to sharpen up his defence, I don't think he can go into this fight genuinely believing that AJ won't land on him. Now, once again, let me say, I am not stating for 1 second that Parker actually thinks AJ won't land on him, but I'm just addressing one of the comments that he made during the filming of The Gloves Are Off. You know, Parker, I've mentioned it in the past, his head movement is weak. His guard and the way he holds his guard is weak, in my opinion. And he's going in against a much bigger man who's an accurate guy and who can counterpunch. So Parker's going to get caught at some point in the fight. AJ, he said one or two contradictory things. He said he doesn't think Parker's got the power to take him out, and then later on described Parker as a ferocious puncher, which kind of the two, well, you know, if he's a ferocious puncher, presumably he would have the power to take AJ out. He also questioned Joseph Parker's stamina, which I thought was odd, because for me, Joshua's single biggest weakness is his stamina. And, you know, Parker, for me, is the more proven guy in terms of stamina. You know, we've seen Parker go 12 rounds on numerous occasions. AJ's never been the distance. We've seen Parker go 12 against Ruiz. We've seen Parker go 12 against Takam. We've seen Parker go 12 against Hughie Fury. And in all of those fights, Parker's been able to fight in the late rounds. You know, it's not like they've got to round 10 or 11 and Parker's sort of been clinging on for dear life. Absolutely not. You know, it's Joshua who's had the moments of horrific stamina collapse during fights, on two separate fights, actually. So, you know, that's interesting. It's interesting. I don't think AJ is best served going into this fight thinking that he's the highest stamina fighter, just like I don't think Parker is best served going into this fight thinking that AJ won't land on him. You know, but as I say, for the third time, just because the guys have said it, it doesn't for 1 second mean that that is the actual game plan they're going to adopt when they're in the ring. AJ did say he just thinks I'm tougher than Joe. I just think I'm tougher than him. Again, you know, if I was in the Joshua camp, I wouldn't be looking to get through this fight based on toughness. I wouldn't be looking to, you know, do that. I'd be trying to use my brain a bit more. I'd be trying to construct more of a game plan than just being the tougher guy. But yeah, we've probably touched on that enough. A lot of the feedback on this Gloves Are Off was about Johnny Nelson, and you know, the suggestion that he was very, very biased throughout the filming. What I will say is, I know the Gloves Are Off is filmed over a lot longer period than the time that makes it to air, and look, they edit the bits that will make the most interest to the viewing public. So just because the bits we've seen, so Nelson, you know, probably putting Joshua in a favourable light. Maybe, you know, if we presume Nelson's best intent, maybe he was more even overall, and those were the bits that got edited out. But I doubt it, because there were some very, very questionable bits from Johnny Nelson. He said, I'm paraphrasing here, so these aren't exact quotes, but he said something to the effect of, "We know there's heart on the Joshua side. Is there heart on the Joseph Parker side?" At another point, he said, when referring to Joseph Parker, who is this guy? Does he deserve to be there? You know, he asked Parker that when he asked Parker to introduce himself to the British public. He later on referred to AJ having to fight all comers and made reference to, you have to fight guys, even guys who've been watching you before you knew their name. And to be fair, at that point, Joshua jumped in and goes, oh, I know who Parker is. I've been watching him since 2010. And to be honest, Parker is a well-known guy in the heavyweight boxing community. You know, on this channel, where it was 2018 now, I was making videos on Joseph Parker back in 2014. You know, Parker is not new to the scene. Parker had a big following amongst the heavyweight hardcore 2013, 2014, maybe even 2012. Parker was a respected amateur. You know, I'm not saying for one second that Parker has been a celebrity for years, but you know, I'm glad that AJ said, oh, I know exactly who Parker is. You know, Parker is not some guy who's just plucked from the street. You know, Rocky Balboa versus Apollo Creed. Who is this guy? You know, I thought Nelson could have phrased that a little bit more respectfully. I mean, Joseph Parker is the reigning WBO heavyweight champion of the world. He has beat Hughie Fury, who is considered by many British boxing heavyweight fans as a top talent. He also beat Carlos Takam, who was AJ's very last fight. So, you know, for me, if someone doesn't know who Parker is, or if Joshua doesn't know who Parker was, I think that would be a bit of a concern. Does Joseph Parker deserve to be there? Absolutely he does. Look, this is a heavyweight unification title fight. Of course he deserves to be there. And frankly, you know, Parker's form with the wins over Ruiz, with the wins over Takam, Hughie Fury, there's no way you can have Joseph Parker out of the top 5 in the heavyweight division based purely on resume. You know, you could say Joshua was ahead of him because of the Klitschko win. You could say Wilder's ahead of him because of the Ortiz win. You could say Povetkin's ahead of him. But really, Parker is a solid 4th, and you know, he very much deserves to be in there based on who's available in the heavyweight division. So I can see why Nelson got a little bit of stick for appearing to be a bit of an AJ fanboy during the time of filming. And I'm sure that, you know, guys from New Zealand who are tuning into this felt that the production was very biased and one-sided, and I can see your point. You know, I can see your point. The good bit, of course, is to those guys in the UK who hadn't heard of Joseph Parker, and there will be a large proportion of the casual boxing fans out there who won't have done, unfortunately. Programming like this does help introduce him. It does help build his name, build his brand, and you know, that's a good thing for the promotion. It's a good thing for him. It's a good thing for the fight, etc. So, anyway, the build-up is warming up. Is this good viewing? If you haven't already seen it, you know, I give it a 5 out of 10. You guys know I'm a boxing nut. I love stuff like this, so I'm a bit of an addict for it. I watch most stuff that's out there. It's probably not the most electrifying production you've ever seen. It's probably not the most exciting. I probably ruined most of it by touching on some of the most memorable points during this video. But I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you found it informative. Leave your comments in the section below if it's of interest. Hit the thumbs up to get this a little bit of a wider audience. And as ever, please press subscribe. Especially we're going to start building the build-up to this fight in the next few days and weeks. So make sure you subscribe so you can check out all of the coverage. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys watching. Have a good one.